All rise for the jury.
Everybody be seated, please. May proceed, Ms. Kappelman.
All right, so you were telling us about going into Mr. Garcia's place of employment on May 24th, 2016.
Yes.
What happened once you entered his place of employment?
I asked him if he could step outside and speak to us. His supervisor approached us, questioned us, asked who we were. I explained to her we just needed to talk to Mr. Rivera. Mr. Garcia. We ended up stepping out in the hallway and started talking to him.
All right, and was this a custodial situation or was Mr. Garcia free to leave?
He was free to leave.
Okay, was the interview recorded?
Yes, it was.
How was the recording done?
I had a body digital recorder.
Okay, I'm going to show you what I marked as State's Exhibit 156. Do you have an opportunity to review 156?
Yes, I have.
And is it a fair and accurate recording of the conversation you had with Mr. Garcia?
Yes, it is.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce State's 156.
Any additional objection?
No additional objections.
Nothing additional, Your Honor.
States 156 will be admitted. You may.
Permission to make use of a demonstrative transcript?
You may.
I'll give him just a moment to pass those out.
Your Honor, same objection as to these transcripts.
Objections overruled.
For the record, we just received it now.
For the record, I have evidence to the contrary on that.
But attorneys, we're not going to argue in front of the jury, please. I think y'all know better than this.
Well, you may publish, thank you.
There's the traffic jam? We're good. Okay, yeah, you're not a good part of the bus control, but
You're trying not to eat your part. No, but we do finance. So right now, we are COVID. We're trying not to do it.
it's not like a...
Yeah, but that's the direction.
I'm trying to be real quiet. I wasn't even talking.
I have an office upstairs, but I want to do it in the office.
We're doing the office here.
Yeah, go on.
You don't have to come right down here.
No, I got it. We got some information that I just want to talk to. You know what?
There's 19 people in it.
Is it? There's like people like that?
Rivera?
Yeah. Luis Rivera, something like that. We got some information about something that happened a couple of years ago, and your name popped up in it. We're just trying to... Okay. All right. This happened up in North Florida, up in the northern end of Florida up there. You ever been to Tallahassee, Florida?
No, I have not.
No, never. Okay. Do you know of Luis Rivera or Luis Rivera or something like that?
Like I said, I know several.
Okay.
But at the same time.
Oh, excuse us. Sorry about that. Okay. Is there one that you're friends with or anything that you hang out with or anything?
You would be like a little more specific as to what it is that
he's kind of short guy.
Asking for, or why I might know him, or if I feel like if I should even say I know him, because from what my prior experience, I'm sure you know my name. You know exactly where to come.
Well, we found where from. Yeah, we want to look right. Oh, you got a nice job and stuff. That's why we wanted
family.
And we found out you had kids. I didn't want to do this in front of your kids. You know what I mean? It's bad enough doing it at your work, but I don't know where else to find you. It's either at home or at work. It's only two places I know to come talk to you about. So I'm saying I don't want to freak your kids out and stuff.
Let's
Do it a little further, maybe? Okay.
This way there aren't 20 people.
That doesn't bother me. That's fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
So why should I know or should I not know Luis Rivera?
Okay.
That's what I need to know.
Well, there's some information about some things that happened up north, and and your name was thrown out there. Some information just came to light recently that you and Mr. Rivera might have been had something to do with it up north. Do you know Dan Markel? Do you know who Dan Markel is?
Doesn't sound like anybody I know.
Doesn't sound like anybody you know? Okay. So you've never been to North Florida either. As far as taking trips up north or anything, have you,
None whatsoever.
none whatsoever, never been up that way? Okay. Who do you live with right now? You live with somebody?
I live with my wife.
Yeah, okay, you're married, okay.
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
What's her name?
Why? That's I'm not gonna really.
You man, and your name came up in an investigation, obviously, and that's why we're trying to get your side of the story to find out if there's any validity to it, if there's any reason about it. Your wife works obviously somewhere and makes money herself. So, what kind of car does she drive? I'm trying to get you to talk to me about some stuff, and I can't tell you what our investigation is totally about, right? I can't just go into it.
It's like a one-sided kind of.
I know it's
not really fair.
I mean, okay, your name came out like I told you. Gotcha. Yeah, now you look like you're doing well for yourself, for sure. I know you had
right
some
now
history,
it's kind of, that I get badged with an FBI. It's like, wow, this is not something I'm accustomed to. So obviously I'm on defense, and I don't think I should say anything more than I want to say.
Okay.
But I mean, if I could help, obviously I'd be more than happy to.
Okay.
I definitely don't want people coming over here to my job.
I know.
Because obviously right now that's stirred up. Because when I got this job, I'm not the greatest person to have a job in financing.
Sure.
So right now, what you practically did was just like take.
You go back in and tell her you're a witness in a case. You go back and tell her.
I'm not going to go in there and tell them that, because then they're going to think, are they in litigation? Are they going to court? Are they getting audited? Is it something that I'm doing against my company now? So it's like pretty much you just like shaded part of my French all over the little bit of character.
Well, we're trying not to. That's why we tried to just whisper to you and then get you come out.
I appreciate at least the
we attempted to. No other way. If that are your kids, we thought this would be the better.
Yeah, the discreetness, but a phone call maybe, or I don't know you.
Oh, we didn't know your number either. What's your phone number? Your cell phone number?
Once again,
you gonna get that either?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to, but it's just I feel like I should be a little bit defensive now, because you guys showed up to my job. I'm
I hear you.
Upset actually. That had to happen.
I hear you. We got a job to do. We got to vet these things out.
I respect that. I respect that. I'm talking to me, so it's like. And then recently, it just doesn't feel right now. I don't know. I mean, you guys seem very welcoming and nice and everything you do. You very do.
We didn't come in here.
I know.
Kicking doors in. Like I told you.
Trying to beat me up, dragging me out of my job.
Like I said, it's totally voluntary. You're not under arrest.
Yeah, no,
we're here just talking to you and stuff, and we're just trying to find out. We got some information, and we're trying to find out if that information is even valid at all, without ruining your life here.
I travel to Orlando. I go to Disney.
Okay.
I go to LA. I've gone to Dominican Republic, my family, stuff like that.
Okay, all right. Mr. Rivera is a little short, short Hispanic. I think he's got some tattoos and stuff. I mean, you know a lot of guys you hang out with. I mean, there's a lot of them like that. This one got locked up in jail. He's in prison right now.
Okay, my name is very different.
It is. It is very specific. There's not a whole lot of people with your name out there.
So
that's how we ever find you so easy, because somebody gave up your name.
Okay.
Do you have a nickname? Is your nickname Tudo?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you know Rivera as Tato?
I know
Tato.
I know a Tato, yeah. My uncle's Tato too, though. So.
Okay, but do you know a Luis Rivera or Luis Rivera as Tato also? Okay.
Luis Rivera, yeah.
Okay.
I know several Luis Riveras.
Okay.
So just keep it like that, because I don't understand where you're going with this.
Okay, well, I want to find out who this guy is and find out exactly what his deal is. If you're tight with him or not, if you've been with him a lot, you used to hang with him.
Yeah, no, I haven't been with nobody a lot.
Okay.
I'm always with my wife, my kids.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
I'm like daddy of the year, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
I even babysit.
How old are your kids?
9 and 4.
Oh, awesome. They're good ages, man.
Yeah, boy and girl.
Boy and girl, got one of each. Awesome.
Yeah, top close.
Having those ages, man, is pretty cool. They're out of that diaper stage, but they can still do their own stuff now.
She sleeps without diaper. So.
Really? No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
sleep through the night now and you don't have to worry about it?
It's been a while. We always sleep through the night, but still.
Oh, okay.
So what can I do to, so obviously we have to, there's some issues that you want to speak to me about. I feel like I shouldn't speak any more than I have to, because for some reason I don't want to be collateral damage or even something to something that I have nothing to do with. So.
Right, if you had nothing to do with it, that's what you need to clear your name with and
but
get
still,
out of this.
for me to clear my name on something I don't know anything about,
Yeah, well, here's the deal. We got a bunch of stuff at the office that I can sit down. If you wanted to go to the office, we can sit down and I can go over some stuff, some documents and stuff like that, and find out if you know anything about all this stuff. So you'd have to be willing to come down to the office with all that.
I wouldn't go without an attorney, obviously. I don't, that just sounds wrong.
Okay.
Because it's like you have a whole bunch of stuff on people that just saying that came and said
You might be able to help us out. You might be able to point us out and say, yeah, I know this person, they were doing this, they were doing that. And,
yeah, I wish
you know,
I
be able to point some things out.
but I'm not really that guy. I'm not.
Oh, sorry. We're just talking. Thanks. So now, you know what? It really helped clear some stuff up, man.
I have my attorney call you guys.
Who's your attorney?
I don't know yet, but I'm gonna call him.
Oh, okay. You don't have one already? Okay. I mean, if you didn't do anything wrong, man, you don't have anything. Well,
Hi, Mama. How you doing?
I hear you, man. I hear you. I hate to leave this hanging like this, though, man.
I know, man. I hate it too, bro. You telling me I got FBI doing my job.
I know.
It's not hanging right now. When I walk back in, there's a beret of questions. It's gonna be ridiculous, right?
Tell them whatever you want. That's why we won't talk in front of them. We're not going to put you out there like that.
Yeah, but you came up to my desk. That's why my manager started. My supervisor, I was eating breakfast. And my supervisor comes up and she does it because nobody's allowed inside the financial office because we have people's personal information and then we're PCI compliant. We're accredited. We can't have.
So I have walk-in people come in and talk to you. It's all through the phone.
Yeah. So when you guys came in, obviously, and looked at me and said, "We need to talk to you." She's like, "This is not allowed."
I got you. I got you.
So
I got you. Well, that's our mistake. We didn't realize what the hell was set up in there.
See, you guys have
I didn't want to call your manager and say, hey, with the FBI, we need to talk to, we need to talk to you. We're trying to get around her so she doesn't, she doesn't let us screw your job up.
There's no getting around her.
I can tell.
She does her due diligence.
I can tell. That's why I wanted you to step outside so I can show you my credit and not show it to her.
Yeah, but it could have been a disgruntled.
I know. I understand her reason. I totally understand. I know. But you can see about what we were trying to do. We were trying not to put you out there with your manager.
I got you. I understand that. No, I know what I seen was done. That's why I said, okay, I'm not going outside with this guy. I don't know if he's somebody we lent money to, he defaulted on, he wasn't happy with the terms. He might shoot me in the hallway.
Oh, you see it in my shirt.
Yeah. Very plain, big gun too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't, I'm not going to go without an attorney. I mean, I understand unless you're telling me I'm under arrest and you're taking me to jail.
No, you're not.
I want to help you guys. I really do. Okay. Anything I can do to help you, I would be more than happy to help you. But I'm not going to just put myself in a position where I might not be helping myself.
I got you.
It might not work out for me. And I don't like that whatsoever.
I got you.
I mean, I don't.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can resolve this by staying here in this hallway. So you haven't been to Tallahassee, and you don't really. Have you taken any trips with Mr. Rivera, with Tato?
No.
You ever been anywhere with him?
No.
No. Do you know what his phone number is? I mean, stuff like that. And your old phone number, stuff like that would help us.
No,
I mean, might clear things up if we know what phone you were using and what phones other people are using during time periods. It would help us out if you could tell us the phone number, stuff like that.
Nowadays, by writing the phone number down, like, do you really remember any of your friends' phone numbers by memory?
Not anymore. It's an old art. Yeah, it's an old art.
It is. I know my mom's number. You know.
Yeah. Ones that people have for a long time. What's your home phone number? You remember your own phone number?
I changed my number a couple of times too as well because me and my wife were separated for a while. So I was with some other girls and couldn't come back home with the same number.
When were y'all separated? How long?
For about 2 years.
Wow. You're back together now? Awesome.
Yeah, the kids,
Absolutely. That's good though, man. That's good for the kids for sure,
Mm-hmm.
Kids there's arguments both ways, but kids need both parents. It's tough on kids.
Kids are number one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool, man. That's impressive. You got back to it. Yeah. It's you know what it's like, man. So that's cool. So y'all been back together, and y'all were apart for 2 years.
Yeah, probably even more than that. A little more than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's alright though. It is what it is.
I hear you, man. I don't want to keep you from your job here. I hate to leave this.
I don't want to go back to my job now.
I know.
It's like right now I'm in a position that I don't even know what I'm going to say when I get back in there. Because it's like I don't have anything to say. I don't know what to say. But
I hear you, man.
The FBI came and asked me questions about some Spanish Latino guy that's short with tattoos, and they wanted me to know if I've taken trips with him. That's like odd questions, and it's it's like no, obviously, but it's still scary to me because I don't know what you guys want.
Right.
What people are trying to tie me into.
Yeah.
Because the FBI don't just come around asking people questions. I watch enough CSI to know that. Yeah.
And like I said, if we knew if we thought you did something, it wouldn't be me here, standing here, coming up to your work, just talking to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're just trying to get information from you.
No,
That's why we're trying to get you to
I
help us.
understand that,
You know what I mean?
But it's just, at my expense. I understand you guys are trying to do something, but right now, you guys just,
I hear you. I'm just trying to think of ways to clear this thing up, man. I mean, we had somebody call in and gave us your information about something that happened up north. I'll go ahead and tell you about it. There was a homicide up in the north part of Florida up there. Did you ever hear about it, Dan Markel?
A homicide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got killed?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. You hadn't heard about that murder or anything? You know anything about? Ever hear it on the news or anything?
No murder.
Okay.
I never heard about. No.
Okay.
Would you like me to collect the transcripts?
Please.
Right, so that interview was on May 23rd of 16. When was
May
Mr.
24th.
I'm sorry, May
you said.
24th of 16. Thank you, Judge. When was Mr. Garcia arrested?
On May 25th, the following evening.
All right, so the day after the interview.
Correct.
And were you present for his arrest?
Yes, I was.
And where was his arrest?
It was in Hollywood, Florida, in a gas station right off the interstate.
All right, and was Mr. Garcia in a vehicle, or was he driving a vehicle at the time of
Yes.
his arrest? What vehicle was that?
The black Lexus.
Same black Lexus that Ms. Magbanua was arrested driving?
That's correct.
No further questions.
Question.
Special Agent Sanford, good afternoon. Okay. So, as a member of the FBI, it would be safe to say that you have other relationships with other agents in the FBI?
In the FBI, yes.
So an agent from Tallahassee could call an agent in Miami and say, hey, listen, I need information about one of your investigations, about a current investigation I have, and they usually want to help you out?
Generally, yes.
Now, you indicated that you started your investigation. One of the things that you first investigated was Luis Rivera's affiliation and association with the Latin Kings. Is that correct?
That's not one of the first things I investigated, no.
Let me rephrase it. Is one of the things that you investigated Luis Rivera's gang affiliation with the Latin Kings?
Yes, I did not investigate that association. I talked to the Miami FBI and Miami ATF about their investigation.
And you indicated on direct examination that Mr. Rivera is currently serving a federal RICO sentence, correct?
That's correct.
And do you know what RICO stands for?
Not off the top of my head.
Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organization. Sound about right?
That's right.
And the RICO in this case is the Latin King Association. That's the reference that's being made in his federal indictment. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And would it be fair to say that you had access, because of your relationship as an FBI agent, to the actual FBI case file in his Latin King indictment?
No, because it was actually investigated by the DEA and the ATF.
As an FBI agent, could you call DEA or ATF and ask for their assistance?
Yes, I did.
And you did that in this case, correct?
That's correct.
And did they assist your investigation, or did they hinder your investigation?
I guess you could say they assisted it by providing me with information.
Well, let's talk about that. They showed you a copy of the indictment, correct?
No, I don't believe I ever saw a copy of the indictment.
Well, would you agree with me that the copy of the indictment in a federal RICO statute where Luis Rivera is a Latin King, correct?
Correct.
And it was a Latin King indictment, correct?
There was other Latin Kings indicted with it. Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And actually there was roughly 19 Latin Kings, including Luis Rivera, in that indictment, correct?
I'll take your word for it.
It's not my word, I'm asking you.
He said he didn't see the indictment, Mr. Singh, and maybe weren't listening. Did you hear what he said?
I must have not caught it, Judge.
Okay, fine.
All right, so you have access to the federal case file on Luis Rivera's federal indictment, correct?
No, I can't just pull up somebody's case file. That's incorrect.
Maybe I didn't ask that the right way. Were you able to gain access to it?
No,
Were you able to gain access to the wire intercepts on this case?
yes, they provided me a copy of the wire intercepts.
Okay. And the copy that we're talking about is the federal government listening, just kind of like you were listening to Charlie Adelson and Catherine McManus phone calls, right?
That's correct, but it's DEA and ATF doing that.
But it's the same thing. You're still listening to calls, right?
But it's specific people who are allowed to listen to them. Just not everybody in the federal government can go listen to somebody else's calls.
But you got a copy of these calls.
I did.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes.
Okay, so you have in your possession, now do you recall, would it be fair to say that the calls were from October 2014 till December 2014? Does that timeline sound about right?
I think it was November to December, I believe, from my recollection.
Do you not recall a specific call on October 23rd that was part of the wire intercept, that was part of the factual proffer in this case?
I don't know which call you're talking about.
Is there anything I could show you that could refresh your recollection?
If you tell me what it's regarding, I might.
Okay. In Luis Rivera's case, there was a call that was intercepted by Luis Rivera seeking the assistance of other Latin kings.
Hearsay and ask for a different method of repression.
Would you like to see a copy of the factual proffer with what I'm specifically referring to?
Outside the scope of direct examination also, so I'll sustain all three objections.
You listened to all the phone calls on the wire intercept, correct?
That's incorrect.
Did you have people in your team listen to all these calls?
Not all the calls. All the calls dealing with Luis Rivera, we did.
You'll agree with me that the wire intercept in this case is in the latter portion of 2014, correct?
Correct.
Within a few months of this murder for hire, correct?
That's correct.
And you're telling this jury that you didn't listen to every single phone call that Luis Rivera, one of the main perpetrators in the government's theory, a cooperating defendant, you didn't listen to all those calls?
We listened to every call that Luis Rivera was involved in, not every call that the entire wire was involved in, because it had, like you said, 20 people involved, and there was hundreds of hours of calls.
But you understand that they intercepted Luis's phone.
And I said we listened to every call that Luis Rivera was involved in.
Maybe I didn't ask it the right way.
Okay.
So you listened to every one of King Tato's calls, correct?
That's correct.
Objection, F answered.
Sustain.
During that time, do you know if he called King Wanjma?
Objection, relevance.
Well, Judge,
Sustain.
did you or any one of your team attempt to interview any of the defendants on the federal indictment?
No, we did not.
And you'll agree with me, at the time that Luis Rivera was arrested, all 22 people on the indictment had pled guilty on that federal indictment.
I'm not aware if every one of them did or not. I'm not sure.
Did you have the ability to conduct these interviews?
Yes, we did, but we didn't want to burn our chance for the wire by doing that.
You didn't want to burn your chances on the wire?
Correct.
The
On us having an upcoming wire, that's correct.
Did you attempt to interview these people after the wire?
No.
During your investigation, did you learn that there were over 100 Latin kings under Luis Rivera's North Miami tribe?
I didn't learn that number. I knew he had a tribe.
Were any members of the tribe interviewed?
I'm not sure.
Now, Luis Rivera goes to federal prison in 2015, correct?
That's correct.
And you began, and at this point, would it be fair to say that he's already a target in your investigation?
At which point in 2015?
By the time he pleads guilty and goes to federal prison, is he a target in your investigation?
That's incorrect.
No, I'm asking you, is he?
No, he's not.
Okay, he's not. As a federal agent, you prepare specific reports when you do an investigation. They're called 302s. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as the case agent in this case, from the federal perspective, you would be in charge of collecting all the 302s. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm not in charge of collecting them. People are responsible for
Providing
submitting
them?
their own,
Okay.
correct, into the case file.
Well, would it be fair to say that the case file is in your possession?
No, it's a digital case file,
Okay.
electronic.
How many 302s were prepared in reference to this case,
I don't know.
roughly? Was it more than 100?
Probably.
About 150, sound about right?
Maybe less.
And how many of those 302s, and a lot of these 302s were in references to interviews that you guys did, right?
Some of them, yes.
Like the people from the car rental place, right?
That's correct.
Shodrick Nobles, right?
No, I did not do a 3-2 on Shadra Noble because he was recorded.
Okay, what about Mr. Rivera's girlfriend? Do you remember her name?
Mr. Rivera's girlfriend,
Luis Rivera's girlfriend.
his baby's, Jessica,
Yeah.
who you're referring to? Yes.
Yeah. Did you do a 302 on her?
I did a short 302 on her, but I think she was recorded too.
And by recorded, do you mean like audio recorded or video recorded?
Audio recorded.
So just kind of like you put like a tape player down, you push play,
No,
but more sophisticated than that?
no, there's different, the Tallahassee Police Department records theirs. We generally don't unless we have permission from our supervisor.
So you're saying that Shodrick Nobles was videotaped or audio taped?
That was videotaped by the police department.
And Jessica Rodriguez was just audio taped?
That was just audio taped. I
Was she
believe.
put on notice that she was being audio taped?
No, she was not.
So you interviewed Jessica Rodriguez, who was Luis Rivera's baby mama, correct?
That's correct.
Did you interview, and you know that Luis Rivera at the time of the arrest was the first crown or the Inca or the head of the North Miami tribe, correct?
The time of what arrest?
At the time of his arrest.
By us or by the
Both.
feds? I didn't even know who he was when he got arrested back
Okay.
then. Didn't even know who he was at all.
But you learned during your investigation that he was the first crown of the Latin Kings, correct? Of the North Miami tribe.
North Miami tribe, yes.
Okay. Did you attempt to interview the second crown,
No, did not.
the enforcer,
No, it did
the
not.
secretary?
Nope.
And is that because the Latin Kings are known to have a code of silence?
No, it's more because we had no information that they were involved whatsoever.
Now, there's a portion of Luis Rivera's interview that you did. You did multiple interviews with Mr. Rivera, correct?
I believe so. I believe it was 2.
So there's one on September 30th of 2014. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And I'm sorry, 2016. I said 2014.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
It was 2016.
And during that time, you're there, right?
That's correct.
Detective Isom's there, right?
Yes.
Obviously, Luis Rivera's there.
Yes.
One of his lawyers is there.
Correct.
Was it it's a father-son team?
I believe it was the father.
Okay. The father's the guy with the gray hair as opposed to the shaved head?
Correct.
Was Ms. Kappelman there?
Not in the room.
Okay. Well, when you say not in the room, what does that mean?
She was in the building in another room.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that she was part of this process?
Part of the process of the proffer?
Right.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, at this point, we know that Mr. Rivera has agreed to a plea deal of 19 years to run at the same time as his federal sentence, correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Were you part of the negotiations between the government and Mr. Rivera's defense team with regards to what the outcome of his sentence would be if he cooperated?
No, not at all.
Were you present when any of this occurred?
No.
And Ms. Kappelman and her team are kind of remotely located while you're talking to Mr. Rivera and his attorney, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And since you're not recording it, would it be safe to say that there was back and forth going on between law enforcement and the attorneys in the case?
I think only at one point, maybe.
So the
But
answer
no,
is yes?
There wasn't
There was back and forth?
just one time.
Okay. So at one time you went there and they came back?
That's
So
correct.
back and forth?
Yes, we took one break, I believe.
And would it be fair to say that one of the things that you guys were doing during that time is assessing his credibility?
Yes, that's fair.
And at this time, would it be safe to say that Mr. Rivera had access through his attorney to parts of the discovery?
I don't know what he had access to.
As a special agent with the FBI, is it normal in law enforcement investigations that once someone's arrested, the prosecution gives them evidence?
Yes, that's true.
Any reason for you to believe that this is not one of these normal cases?
That he didn't get discovery? No, there's no reason to believe that.
And will you also agree with me that your conversations with him on September 30th was kind of like your first impression of speaking with him?
Yes, we were gauging his truthfulness.
And that's because just like you played a tape of Sigfredo Garcia that we just listened to from May 24th, correct?
Correct.
You guys went to see Luis Rivera while he's in federal prison in Coleman, right? It was Coleman?
It was Coleman.
Okay. About a week before that, right?
That's incorrect.
Mid-May?
No, that's incorrect.
When did you first go see him? Take a look at your records.
Our first, I don't have the dates with me, I don't believe. But it was definitely after we talked to Mr. Garcia.
Okay.
It was definitely after. We didn't talk to anybody until that day we talked to Mr. Garcia. It was
All right,
first
so
time.
I'm sorry. So after May 24th, but before June 1st, would that sound about right?
Yes, oh, definitely.
Okay. Because he was arrested in Coleman, correct?
Yes.
Luis Rivera was.
He was, I guess, served with an arrest warrant, not by us, but
Right, because when
He
you're
was
in custody, you don't really get arrested. They just let you know, hey, you've got another problem, right?
Exactly.
And that's what happened here to Mr. Rivera,
that's correct.
correct? And before that happened, you went to federal prison and you had a conversation with him, correct?
That's correct.
And you asked him about his involvement in this case, correct?
That's correct.
And he told you he wasn't involved, right?
Correct.
And would it be fair to say that interaction with him was also not memorialized on video or audio, right?
That's incorrect.
It was memorialized
Yes, it was.
on audio, right?
Correct.
I'm sorry, maybe I should have said it better. On video, right?
Not on video.
Not
no.
on video. And you'll agree with me that the way someone talks while they're talking is something that people take into consideration when you're determining someone's truthfulness, correct?
Sometimes correct.
Yeah. So September 30th, kind of your first real conversation with Luis Rivera. He's there with his lawyer. You're evaluating how he reacts to your questioning, because would it be fair to say that you were cross-examining him or interrogating him during this talk?
That's incorrect.
You were just listening to a side of the story?
That's correct.
And obviously we can't show the members of this jury that interview because it wasn't memorialized on video, correct?
Asked and answered.
All right. So I think he needs to answer that question. Was it recorded?
No, sir.
And about how long was this interview?
Just guesstimating maybe an hour, hour and a half.
Do you have a report that you could refer to that says interview starts X time, interview ends X time?
I know Investigator Isom completed a report, it had details about the interview on it, but I don't remember if it has the times on there.
Now, the October 4th statement by Luis Rivera was recorded, correct?
That's correct.
And were there 31 days in September? No, okay. So October 1st, October 2nd, October 3rd, and then October 4th. So 4 days later, 4 or 5 days later, a few days later, you guys set up another interview where you flick on the camera and voila, right?
That's correct.
And you'll agree with me that this second interview, it's memorialized, right?
Correct.
And it's memorialized not just on audio, but also on video, correct?
That's correct.
And you'll also agree with me that on this October 4th date, it's Luis Rivera once again, yourself, Special Agent Isom, a court reporter, and the same Collins, the older gentleman, correct? The older of the two Collins?
I don't believe there's a court reporter present.
There
But the
wasn't
rest
a
of it,
stenographer sitting at the end of the table taking down notes?
no, I believe she was with the defense attorney.
Oh, okay. So there's just another lady in the room.
Yes.
Okay. And So you recorded one, but you didn't record the other, right?
That's correct.
And why was that?
Because to start with, the state attorney's office, that was their request. They didn't want it recorded to start with, and then after we did it, they came back and wanted it recorded. But we generally don't record our proffers in the federal system at all.
Right, yeah, I know, but this isn't a federal case, right? This is, sir,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
This is a state case, we're in state court, right?
Right.
And you understand that there's a difference between a federal prosecution and a state prosecution, correct?
There's some differences, yes.
And you'll agree with me that there was 2 interviews and one was recorded and one wasn't, right?
That's correct, yes.
May I? May I approach that?
You know?
Special Agent? I'm showing you a CD that I showed you earlier today, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you know what this is, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is the actual October 4th interview between yourself, Agent Isom, Luis Rivera, and his legal team, correct?
That's correct.
And you've reviewed this?
Skip through it quickly.
Does it appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as it was when you first took it?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, the defense moves what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Object to hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, I'll re-enter this at another portion to another witness, Judge. Now, that video shows Luis Rivera's body language, right?
Sure.
Okay. It shows the way he responds to questioning, right?
Yes.
It shows whether or not his attorney jumps in and starts asking questions to assist his client, correct?
I would disagree with him doing it to assist his client. I think it was to assist the investigation.
Okay, but you will agree that if we watch the video, this jury could draw that conclusion from this house, correct?
They could draw that for themselves. Yes, that is correct.
Because they'd be able to see the actual video itself, right?
Correct. Yes.
Do you know how many times Luis Rivera's attorney objected or interrupted your line of questioning to redirect the questioning in that interview?
No, I don't.
Hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, I'm not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted.
I'll withdraw my ruling.
You can answer that question, sir.
No, I don't.
Now, one of the things the prosecution asked you about was if he made any mistakes, right? If Luis Rivera had made any factual allegations that were incorrect. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
And I think one of the first ones that the prosecution proffered to you was there was a speeding ticket that Luis Rivera received going north from Miami to Tallahassee, where I think he got the ticket in Gainesville around mile marker 375 or something like that, right? Sounds about right?
Sounds about right.
And in his testimony, he thought that occurred not in the June trip, which the records show, right?
That's correct.
But he believed it was in the July trip, right?
That's correct.
And he also believed instead of it being on the way up, that it was on the way down, right?
I don't remember it being on the way down. I think it was on the way up,
Oh, okay.
I believe.
Right. You know what would clear that up for us? Would you agree that a copy of the video, playing the video?
Mr. Sangaday, that is very inappropriate. And jury, let me explain. Generally, what people say outside the courtroom is hearsay. That's why I sustain the objection to the video. Now, if there are things in there that are inconsistent with what Mr. Rivera has said in court, the defense is free to bring that out. But that's my ruling, and you should not be worrying that there's something nefarious going on. He's free to bring out what's inconsistent, but the full statement is hearsay and inadmissible. You can proceed, Mr. Sangaday.
Thank you, Judge. So he got the date of the trip wrong, correct?
That's correct.
And he also indicated that my client was the one driving the vehicle the whole trip up, correct?
Which trip?
The June trip.
The June trip, I don't recall off the top of my head. I have to look at the video again.
You'll agree with me that Mr. Rivera had indicated that there was a substantial amount of drug use that occurred on that June 4th trip, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Going up north?
Correct.
And you also agree with me that his timeline was way off, right?
Not sure what you're referring to there.
Sure, no
Give me some
problem.
specifics.
Mr. Rivera said that he believed that he arrived in Tallahassee around 5 a.m. Is that correct? Early in the morning?
I believe so.
Like super early, like between 5 and 7?
I don't remember if that's what he said or not.
Is there something I could show you that will refresh your recollection?
The video, or if you showed me Investigator Ison's report.
I'll tell you what, I'll get back to that.
Okay. You're referring to the first trip, right?
Yes, sir, the
Okay,
June 4th trip.
it'd be Investigator Ison's report then.
So, you questioned him about that first trip, correct?
Yes.
And other than that error, what other errors did he have in his testimony that didn't comport with the facts?
On the June trip, or just overall?
Well, we're just, right now, we're gonna talk just about the June trip.
Okay.
What other factual inaccuracies do you recall that he made during that proffer?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Is there something that will refresh your recollection? Would it be to watch the video again?
Sure.
Was there any evidence, any physical evidence, that Luis Rivera was the one that took that trip from Miami to Tallahassee
The first trip,
on June 4th?
physical evidence that he took it?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have phone records from Luis Rivera's cell phone, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you had his number, correct?
That's correct.
And he confirmed, by he I mean Luis Rivera, that the number that you had was in fact the number that he was using, correct?
That's correct. Correct.
Okay. And you were able to confirm this because I assume when he got arrested, Mr. Rivera was arrested with 2 phones, correct?
I don't know what he was arrested with.
Would it be fair to say that when you started your investigation, you contacted the U.S. Attorney's Office and asked them to be able to observe or borrow the evidence at hand because his case was over at that point, correct?
The phone that he had during the time of the trips up, he had already gotten rid of well before he was arrested.
Did you look to see what the new phones were regardless?
The new ones that he was arrested with?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we did.
Let's talk about phones just real quick. You were part of obtaining Charlie Adelson's iCloud, correct? Were you involved in that portion of this investigation?
I was part of the investigation, but I did not do the search warrant to get his iCloud. No.
But you're aware that you received, or the government received, Charlie Adelson's iCloud,
Yes,
correct?
I am aware of it, yes.
And you're also aware that the government received, and that's because Charlie Adelson had some sort of device that comports with an iCloud, right?
That's correct.
Like an iPhone or an iPad or iOS or whatever it is, correct?
That's generally how it works, yes.
And we also got an iCloud for Miss Magbanua, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's because she had an iPhone or whatever comports with having an iCloud, correct?
Correct.
Now you're aware at the time of this incident, and I assume this comes through the cell records, that Mr. Rivera also had an iPhone, correct?
That's correct.
Did you pull his iCloud information?
I believe they did, yes. Not me personally, but yes, TPD did.
And by they, who do you mean?
The tech unit with Tallahassee Police Department.
Did they provide you with a copy of the iCloud information?
I don't recall. I know that I was told that there was nothing there. but I might have seen it. I don't recall. It was a long time ago.
So just so I have this clear, someone from a tech unit called you and said there's really nothing in his iCloud with regards to this case?
And that's not what I said.
Okay. Well, you said there's nothing there.
Right.
Okay. What does that mean, there's nothing there?
That means there was nothing obtainable on it. He didn't either have it turned on where it was sharing with the cloud or not saving, or it got deleted.
So all the data was gone?
If there was data ever even there. Or if there was very little there that didn't amount to anything. I'm not sure which one.
You're aware that the law enforcement, you guys pulled phone records for Luis Rivera, correct?
Correct.
You're also aware that there were, during the time period from, I believe it was early 2014 till late 2014, during the subject portion of the conspiracy, almost 10,000 text messages that were on Luis Rivera's handset,
Which handset?
his cell phone.
Which cell phone? The one that he had at the time of
The
2014?
Well, the one that was part of or relevant to the conspiracy.
No, because that phone was dumped and gotten rid of.
But you guys pulled the phone records.
Right, but there's no text messages involved in the phone records.
So you can't call AT&T and ask for how many text messages Luis Rivera made if he was an AT&T subscriber, right?
They can give us an idea of the number of them, but not the content.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the number.
The number of them, yes.
So there's about 8,000 of them?
I have no idea.
Okay. Special Agent Sanford, you were part of a detail assigned to drive up and down Florida with Luis Rivera looking for the dump side of the gun, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated there was a lot of bridges
That's correct, there are.
between Tallahassee and Miami. And
Correct.
that Luis Rivera took you guys out for 2 days, right?
2 different days, correct.
Back-to-back days?
I don't think they were back to back.
Close in proximity?
Fairly close.
Between September 30th and October 4th?
No, I don't believe that's correct.
So there's a second one after?
I
So
believe
there was one in between the statements and then one after the final statement?
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. Rivera drove in the back seat of a government issued vehicle?
It was a van.
Right. Okay. So not like a police car, right?
No,
So it's a van and he's sitting next to his attorney, right?
correct.
And I know this because there is button cam evidence of Detective Ison, right?
Correct.
Taking this journey, right?
Correct.
All right. And I mean, was there a way that you described this journey in the past? Like, would you consider it like maybe a wild goose chase?
It was trying to find evidence. I wouldn't call it a wild goose chase, no.
And you finally got to a bridge that Luis Rivera said that's the bridge, right?
Not the first trip. That would have been the second time that he believes he found the second one, yes.
Well, so the first time he believes it's a bridge, did you bring like a team to do a search, a full search?
Not the first trip. He did not ID a bridge on the first trip.
Okay. And so, how many hours do you think was in that ride? A few hours?
Several hours.
Okay, like 1, 2, 7?
No, we went past Tampa, so it's 5 hours down and another 5-6 hours back.
All right. And during this time, did you give him prison-issued food, or did you guys stop by like a McDonald's or some sort of fast food for it?
We did stop somewhere along the way and had to get him something to eat. I think his attorney actually got it for him, though, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall exactly.
So kind of like a treat. Like he didn't have to eat standard issued prison food, right?
I wouldn't call it a treat, but okay.
Have you eaten prison food before?
No.
So, on the second day, or the second trip, he stops by a bridge and says, this is where I think the dump is, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you then call in a whole team that comes and analyzes the area, right?
Correct.
Okay. And how many other law enforcement officers came to the scene?
The first time, maybe 10.
Okay. 10 officers from Tallahassee, or did you just call local detail?
It's Tampa. It's the Tampa division. It was in their division, their territory.
Right. And so they lend you about a half a dozen police officers, and they started doing their search, right?
They're federal agents, yes.
And then, right, federal agents, law enforcement, I'm sorry. And then there was a body of water. Obviously, it's a bridge in close proximity, right?
Correct.
And so you guys called out dive teams, right?
Correct.
Okay, and these dive teams came from Quantico and Miami, right?
I believe so, correct.
May I approach, Judge?
May.
Show me what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 5. Do you recognize this?
No, I do not.
You don't recognize this picture?
No.
Well, can you describe, was there a firearm that was recovered?
No, there was not.
There was no firearm recovered in the search?
No, there was not.
If there was a firearm recovered, would you have been put on notice?
At my search, yes, absolutely.
So you had one search that resulted nothing, correct? Negative results?
Correct.
And then you had another search that also resulted in negative results, correct?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, were there any other searches at any other bridges that resulted in finding a firearm?
Somebody told me that the state attorney's office investigator conducted a search of another bridge. I was not present for it.
So he was 0 for 2, and then were you put on notice if this is one of the bridges that you crossed during your trip with Mr. Rivera?
Put on notice of which bridge?
Right. I mean, you drove up and down the coast of Florida with him, right?
Correct.
All right. And pretty much hit as many bridges as you could think of, correct?
Correct.
And he came up with 2, and he went, no gun, right?
No, that's incorrect. The same location was the same bridge. We did a search on the land, the same area. When we didn't find anything on the land, we came back to the same location and searched the water.
Okay.
It was just one bridge that he alerted me to.
Okay. And so, would it be fair to say that that one bridge yielded negative results?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, were you put on notice on how this other bridge was found? Was this?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Are you familiar with Did you question Mr. Rivera about where he thought the gun was disposed?
Yes, on the trip.
Okay.
And during the interview too.
And this, would it be common for Latin King to dump a firearm in the middle of nowhere?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
During your investigation, did you do any due diligence to make a determination of how Latin King's dealt with
I
firearms?
was sustained the objection. Move on, please, Mr. Sanguinet.
So, we talked about, one of the things that you talked about is that part of your investigation, you were able to find out that my client purchased 2 cars and a motorcycle, I think, between a month and 6 months after the incident, correct?
That's correct.
And we know that because there's documentation with regards to these purchases.
That's correct.
And one was for a 94 Monte Carlo, correct?
Correct.
And on that piece of paper, the person that my client purchased the vehicle from, it has their information, there's a former title.
I believe so, yes.
Did you contact or did you have anyone that worked for the FBI follow up with the person that sold the 94 Monte Carlo to Sigfredo Garcia?
No, we did not.
Because you understand that one of the issues in this case is the price of the vehicle, correct?
Price of the Monte Carlo?
Yes.
No, I wasn't aware that was an issue.
Well, let me ask you a question. In the October 4th interview of Luis Rivera, Does he give a guesstimate of how much the car, the purchase price was for the vehicle?
I believe he did, yes.
Okay, and would you agree with me that that's substantially less than the Blue Book value? I'm sorry, was substantially more than the Blue Book value?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you determine what the Blue Book value of the vehicle was?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm not offering it. I'm
The
sorry.
question is, did this agent determine the Blue Book value of the Monte Carlo?
Correct.
You can answer.
I personally did not look at it.
To your knowledge, did anybody in your team?
I believe somebody else on my team did.
And would you agree that if the Blue Book value and the price listed on the title paperwork, if there was a huge discrepancy or any discrepancy at all, the best way to determine the actual value paid would be to contact the the person that Mr. Garcia bought the vehicle from, correct?
That would be a possibility.
And was that done in this case?
Not that I'm aware of.
All the same. Well, let's see here. Now, there was a purchase price put for the motorcycle on the paperwork, correct? On the title paperwork?
I don't recall if there was or not.
Do you recall if this purchase price had any discrepancy with Mr. Rivera's statement?
I don't recall.
And you'll also agree that if you wanted to, because they have the name of the former person that sold the motorcycle to my client, that a call could have been made to verify what the purchase price was?
It's possible.
And lying to a federal agent with regards to, anytime you lie to a federal agent, that's a crime, right?
It can be.
It's a federal statute saying that if you lie to a federal agent, federal law enforcement, that's a federal offense, correct?
That's correct.
So if these people, when questioned by federal agents, didn't give a right answer, they'd be committing a federal crime, correct?
That's correct.
And finally, the old Nissan that he purchased 6 or 7 months after the murder of Dan Markel, you'll agree with me that this came from a website. The title shows it came for Nice Cars for Less, right?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall if you contacted Nice Cars for Less to see how much my client put down or what the total price was?
No, I did not.
All right, now let's get to the bump. All right, the stage performance by Special Agent Jimenez on Donna Adelson. Pardon me. Okay, and you'll agree with me that two people had their numbers intercepted, right?
Correct.
Okay, that would be Charlie Adelson and Catherine McMahon, right?
Correct.
Now, Ms. McMahon was on trial here today, correct?
Correct.
Is Charlie Adelson?
No, he's not.
My client, though, is, right? Secretary Garcia?
Yes, he is.
Was there a Title III, was there a wide intercept on Mr. Garcia's phone?
No, there was not.
You'll agree with me that Mr. Rivera indicated, let me rephrase it. You learned that Mr. Rivera had said that Sigfredo's like his brother, right?
Right.
You'll also remember that when you approached my client the day before you arrested him, you asked him about his relationship with Luis Rivera, correct?
Correct.
And that's because you believed, and you guys had a good faith basis to believe that my client and Luis Rivera had a long-standing friendship, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, there's a note given to Donald Adelson, right?
Yes.
This note is the basis of gathering information by stirring up concerns, right?
Correct.
Okay. And this piece of paper, based on testimony of Agent Jimenez, and I believe you, shows a picture of Mr. Markel, correct? An article about his untimely death, correct?
Correct.
And it purportedly has Ms. McManow's name on it, right? Katie?
No, it does not.
It doesn't say Katie's name on it?
No, it does not.
Okay. Does it say my client's name on it?
No, it does not.
So it doesn't say either Katie or Tuto on the paper, right?
No. No, it does not.
Did you guys take a photocopy of this paper, of this very important document so we could show the members of this jury?
We have a copy of the article. I did not take a photocopy of the actual one where we wrote the amount and the phone number on it. Failed to do that.
Okay. So we don't have that, but what we do have is we have video, right? We have multiple videos, security surveillance, a huge operation that you guys did with regards to sending this message, right?
That's correct.
But we don't have the message, right? we don't have the piece of paper, or at least a copy of it, that you gave to Donna Adelson,
We
right?
have a copy.
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
So we have video surveillance of Agent Jimenez going up to Donna Adelson, right? And in that in that interaction, he specifically names Katie, right?
Correct.
And he specifically names Tuta, right?
Correct.
And Tato as well, right?
Correct.
And at that time, Tato, which is King Tato, Luis Rivera, he's in prison, right?
That's correct.
So putting a wire intercept on his phone would just be an exercise in complete nothingness because that phone's not working, right?
Correct.
And the majority of federal inmates, when they make legal calls, it's through the prison system and all those calls are recorded, right?
Correct.
Unless you set up a legal call with your attorney.
Correct.
Or some sort of thing that you do through the prison, right?
Yes.
But you're also aware that inmates oftentimes have phones that they're not supposed to have, correct?
Correct.
And that's not an uncommon thing. You get caught with a cell phone in prison, you get something called a shot. Are you familiar with this? Like a violation of sorts?
I know what a shot is, and it depends on the violation.
Relevance
Just saying.
Well, my question here is this. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility if somebody wanted to reach out and have a phone conversation with Luis Rivera while he's in custody that wouldn't be recorded.
I'm sorry, what's your question?
Is
out
it
of the
possible?
possibility?
Is it possible?
Is it possible? Yes, it's possible.
And out of the two people that are named by Agent Jimenez, Katie and Tuto, my client, based on your investigation, who would be more likely to make that call to Luis Rivera?
objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Who was closer to Luis Rivera, Sigfredo Garcia or Katie Magbanua?
Secretary Garcia.
Now, no, it isn't. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, Special Agent Sanford. Just getting my notes. Okay, so the bump happens April 19th, 2016, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the first call from Charlie to Katie happens on April 19th, 2016, right? You can refer back to your summary. I just kind of want to get an understanding of what's going on there.
That's correct.
And at that time, he kind of gives a very vague overview as to what's going on, right?
Correct.
Okay. Not a lot of detail,
No.
correct? And it appears that they are setting up, and by they I mean Mr. Charlie Adelson is asking to meet with Ms. Magbanua to have a face-to-face conversation with her, right?
That's correct.
You indicated during direct examination that certain messages like WhatsApp or, WhatsApp video calls or encrypted messaging is something that you would not be able to capture on a wire intercept. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But you'll agree with me that there is a lot of stuff that's actually provided during this wire intercept, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to use a messaging app or a vehicle to shield them from being observed, they would do it consistently, right?
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, they would have the ability to do it, right?
Have
It's not
the
like-
ability. Sorry.
Because you made a reference that you believe that there were certain times, certain things were said on WhatsApp that you guys can't see, right?
Correct.
But then there's a ton of other stuff that you do see, correct?
That's correct.
So that means that the person that once using another known encrypted communication device reverted back to regular phone calls, correct?
That's correct.
So let's go to K, if you could,
Okay.
which is the first phone call that's memorialized on April 21st. And this call, I believe, is from Ms. Magbanowa to my client, correct?
That's correct.
It's early in the morning, around 8:15 in the morning.
Correct, yes.
Now, will you agree that it appears that they have already discussed, or there's been a discussion about a specific number, correct?
Objection, speculation.
I sustain the objection.
Well, let me go to, these are already in evidence, right? Especially,
sorry?
these are already, Judge, these are all already in evidence, correct?
Correct.
Do you have the transcripts in front of you, Special Agent?
No, I do not.
Okay. Could I show you my transcript to refresh your recollection? Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Call K, Mr. Zimmerman? This is call K.
Yes, it's called K825.
What page?
I'm going to page 4. Lines 19 to 23. Go ahead and take a look at those when your recollection is adequately refreshed. Let me know.
Okay.
May I approach again, Judge?
You may.
So now that I've showed you the transcript and it's already been admitted into evidence as call K, what I showed you was communication between Ms. Magbanowa, who says, you're going to tell me I'm going to make a call, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that suggests that they previously had a discussion with regards to this incident, correct? To this,
Objection, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
right? I mean, it makes it sound like they've already talked about this, right?
Right.
Okay. And what does Sigfredo Garcia immediately say after she asks him to make the call?
He says he's not going to.
And he just doesn't say that. He uses emphatic profanity to say, I'm not going to make that effing call, correct?
Correct.
And they continue to have it. And you'd agree with me that it's a confrontational phone call, correct?
Correct.
And you'll agree with me it's 8 o'clock in the morning, around 8:15?
Yes, it was.
And then at the end, Mr. Garcia says, I'll make the call. Emphatically again, but this time saying, instead of, I'm not going to make the call, which appears to have been what he had said before, right?
Correct.
He says, I'm going to make that call, right?
That's correct.
Do you have any phone records showing that Mr. Garcia made any calls?
Made any calls to who?
Okay, well, that's the question. To anybody. Let me say this. Did he make the call to the number given by the special agent?
Yes, he did.
Okay, did he do it on April 21st?
No, it wasn't the 21st.
Right. What about April 20th?
Are you asking me if you called on April 20th?
Yes, sir, I am.
I don't believe so.
So, Charlie calls Katie, right, who's at this point, you'll agree with me, in a relationship with my client?
Correct.
Okay. Are they living together?
Mr. Garcia?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, she knows about it, goes home to her husband. Do you have any calls between Sigfredo Garcia and the bunk number on the 19th of April? Yes or no?
No, not on the
The
19th.
20th of April?
No, I don't recall.
The 21st of April?
I don't believe so.
And if there was a call between Sigfredo Garcia and this bump number, you'd have a record of it, correct?
That's correct.
Because there is a record of it almost a week later, correct?
So I'm trying to look for the date.
I got the date right here. It is
That would be helpful.
April 28th,
Yes, that sounds correct.
8 days later, right?
Yes, correct.
Do you have any phone records of any calls between Sigfredo Garcia and any known Latin kings between the 19th of April and the 28th of April?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Would you agree with me that if somebody, as what it appears in the bump, threatened my client, the client of his wife, and purported to have a relationship with the Latin kings, that my client may know other people to call?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
You'll agree with me that on July 19th, Luis Rivera called another Latin king to try to find Sigfredo Garcia, right?
July 19th.
The day after the homicide. During the purported pickup, the money pickup, right?
You said Luis Rivera called who?
I'm asking you if you recall what Latin king Luis Rivera called to try to find Sigfredo Garcia.
Not off the top of my head.
Would there be something, if I could show you to refresh your recollection?
Anthony Ortiz.
Does the name Anthony Ortiz sound familiar?
It just came to my head. It was, yes.
Okay. King Anthony, right?
King Anthony, yes.
Another member of the Latin Kings.
Correct.
So your evidence shows that Luis Rivera, when he was looking for Sigfredo, called another Latin king, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this other Latin king, your evidence suggests, called my client to find him, right?
I believe so.
Okay. So, did you attempt to see if any calls were made between Sigfredo Garcia and this other Latin king, King Anthony, between April 19th, on April 19th, 2016?
On April 19th. I didn't do the phone records. That would be Sergeant Corbett who did all the phone analysis.
As, I guess, the federal case agent in this case, would you be put on notice if certain things took place?
For the most part, not everything. But
Did you guys look, or did you ask to look? Let's see if there's a connection between King Anthony and Sigfredo Garcia.
I'm sure that we looked at some point. I just don't recall off the top of my head.
All right. And so can you tell the members of this jury if there were any phone calls made by Sigfredo Garcia to King Anthony on April 19th?
I don't recall, but I don't believe so.
What about April 20th?
Not that I know of.
April 21st?
Not that I know of.
April 22nd?
Not that I know of.
Any time in April. Well, and this is the same King Anthony that Luis Rivera, purportedly my client's best friend, called to help find Sigfredo Garcia, right?
Supposedly, yes.
Well, you have phone records of it.
That he called him, I don't know why he called him. They'll have
Well,
a
who-
conversation.
Right, but who told you that?
It was Mr. Rivera.
Luis Rivera, right? And you believed his testimony, correct?
Correct.
Objection.
Overruled.
Okay. Now I'm going to direct your attention to text messages a week later between Catherine McBanoa and Sigfredo Garcia. Now, the phone calls that you guys had the jury listen to were, with regards to my client, there's one on April 21st, 2016. There's another one on April 21st, 2016. And then the next is April 26th, 2016. Does that mean that my client and Ms. McManoa didn't have any telephone communication between that time?
No, that's not what that means.
That simply means that these are the only phone calls that you have elicited to show this jury, correct?
That's correct.
Let's talk about number R, text message. I think it's call number or reference number 1195. On April 26th, around 9:52 in the morning, year 2016, Ms. McManoa sent a text message to my client. Do you recall that?
I see it here, yes, I recall.
And in that text message, she asks or says, makes the statement, need to talk to you about something else, correct?
Correct.
And that suggests that they were talking about something not related to what she's going to ask about now, correct?
That's what it appears to
That's
be.
pretty much the suggestion.
Correct.
6 minutes and 10 seconds later, my client responds, right? At 9:58 and 28 seconds?
Yes,
Call
that's-
number S, another text message, 12:05 for the record, right?
Yes, correct.
Special agent?
Yes,
And he says he was, right? That's the first thing he says? He was?
yes,
And then he says, whatever. And then he puts a period, correct?
correct.
Whatever is going on with you and your homie is your business. You guys work that shit out. Pardon my language. That's not what he said. Pardon my language. I'm saying it. But that's what he writes, right?
That's correct. That's the
And
text
then he
message.
responds by saying, don't text me. Now, who do you believe your homie is? Is that Charlie Adelson?
Is there some of, I can't hear you, Ms. Kevin.
Speculation.
It's the
Joining
same.
that objection.
Is there a response from Ms. McBattle to this text message?
No, not that I know of.
Now, there's a call from Charlie Adelson to the undercover, right?
Yes,
And in this call, he says something to the effect of, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I'm not quoting anything, but he makes the assertion that he doesn't know who Tato or Tuto is, correct?
correct.
You're aware, Special Agent.
Excuse me, Judge, Mr. Zagada,
Yeah.
if you're looking for one of our exhibits, there you go.
I'm putting on the overhead on the Elmo. Well, that's where we are. And on this call, when Charlie Adelson calls the number, right, he finally calls the number himself, and that's after a call is placed to the business, right? Or a message is left by the undercover to the business.
That's correct.
And you recall the day that this call takes place?
The dock button. Yes. Far left.
Which call are you talking about?
I'm
You
talking
talked about two calls.
The call that I'm talking about is the call that Charlie Adelson makes to the bump number.
To the undercover agent.
Right.
Yes. It is on 4/28/16.
From April 19th to April 28th, when Mr. Charlie Adelson actually calls the number back, do you have any actual communication between my client, Sigfredo Garcia, and the number for the bump?
No, there's not.
You indicated on direct that my client did call once, correct?
That's correct.
And hung up and didn't leave a message,
Correct.
correct? Is that consistent or inconsistent with Catherine McBanowa's description of how my client's call went with the undercover?
That particular call that she was talking about, I believe it was inconsistent, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
And because her testimony, and it's in the record already, and we have a copy of it in the wiretaps, is that my client left a very threatening, angry message, right?
That's correct.
And you would agree that that would be the kind of message someone that's being potentially extorted would leave, right? An angry
Objection.
message.
Speculation.
At any point, did my client call the number for the bump and threaten the person?
No, he did not.
Now, in actuality, here we go. Defense exhibit, and I believe this is Ms. McManus' exhibit, defense exhibit 12 is from Charlie Adelson's cell right from his iCloud. And this is a call that occurred on 4/25/2014. Now that's 2 years before this, correct? Here we go. You see right up there, boss, in the top right-hand corner?
2 years before what?
Right. Well, that message, April 25th, 2014, between Charlie Adelson and Captain McManus occurred on April 24th, 2014, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in that, let's go over it real quick. It says, and this is from Mr. McManus to Mr. Adelson. Did Tuto call your phone? You see that, right?
Yes.
His response is, what is that? What's that word there?
No.
No. Did he ask who's Tuto?
No.
And then she responds, I'm sorry, this is still him. He goes, actually he did. Right?
Yes.
Referring to Tuto, right?
That's what it appears to be.
He invited me to go deep sea fishing. He was so nice. Is that making a reference to taking someone out in the middle of the ocean?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Sustained,
Are you familiar with that saying?
sustained. Move on, Mr. Sangaday.
So, in these messages, in 2014, Charlie Adelson clearly knows who Tuto is, correct?
It appears that way.
And when he calls the person from the bump, and it's also clear from that text message that he's inferring some sort of animosity between my client and him, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you'll agree with me that when Charlie Adelson calls Special Agent Jimenez, lies to him.
Correct.
Now, there's also communication in the wire intercepts where my client indicates that the phone didn't work, right? That that he tried to call and nobody picked up, right?
Yes, correct.
Was there always an answering service or a voicemail for that phone?
There wasn't always a voicemail set up on it.
But other than the hang-up that you have, which occurred, I believe, when the voicemails took place, that one phone call that you have that took place on April 28th, had Mr. Garcia called that number any time before that?
No.
In fact, one of the phone calls that Mr. Garcia has with Ms. McManus, my client tells Ms. McManus, why don't they call the police, right?
Correct.
Is my client being extorted for $5,000?
No, he's not.
Is Charlie Adelson being extorted for $5,000?
Yes, he was.
Now, there's a call. Let me go to it. It's GG. And that's a phone call between Charlie to the undercover, correct?
Correct.
And during this call, the agent suggests to Mr. Adelson that the family was taking care of Katie and Tuto. The family has taken care of it. It says was, but I assume it has. And nothing has been done or taken care of with Tato, correct?
Correct.
And what they're doing here, what you're attempting to set up, is suggesting that Luis Rivera was not compensated, right?
Correct.
At this point, you'll agree with me that Luis Rivera hadn't been cooperating at this point, right? I mean, he hadn't even been arrested, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's impossible for him to cooperate. And you don't find out until end of September, early October, what Luis Rivera purports to be the payoff in this case, correct?
That's correct.
And the payoff in this case, based on Luis Rivera, is $100,000, right?
Correct.
And you'll agree with me that what's written, well, the piece of paper that was given to Donna Adelson, you are alleging that the number $5,000 was written on it, correct?
Correct.
And that's consistent with what's in the wire between other people, right?
That's correct.
And you'll also agree that your agent indicated that my client and Ms. McManus had been taken care of, right?
Correct.
And the reference there, or the insinuation there, is financially, right?
Correct.
And you go from $100,000 number, which is what's purportedly paid by Luis Rivera, to a piece of paper where you're asking for only $5,000, right?
Right.
And that's because at the time, $5,000 would be about right for the number for a situation like this, correct?
No, that's not why we came up with that.
Is there a random number, a payable number?
It was a payable number, and we knew there was little things that was being taken care of along the way.
Well, you had the Adelson's bank records at this time, right?
Correct.
All right. Multi-millionaires, right?
A lot of money,
Yeah,
yes.
right. I think you're one of the experts for the government testified that Charlie Adelson during this time period was making $3 to $3.5 million a year, right?
I don't know what was testified to.
Okay, well, does that sound about right? That price, that amount of money he was making?
I know he made a lot of money, yes.
And for a regular person, $5,000 is a lot of money, right? I mean, it's a lot of money.
Sure.
But for a wealthy person, that's not a lot of money, right?
Correct.
I mean, Charlie Adelson drives a Ferrari, right?
Right.
Pretty new Ferrari. He had a high-end Mercedes, right?
Right.
Lived in a dope house, right?
Correct.
Right. Have you seen his house?
Yes.
And have you seen where Miss McManus lived?
Yes.
Okay. Pretty different, right?
Yes.
One is kind of a low scale, low income, low rent apartment, right?
I wouldn't call it low rent, low income. No.
I'm sorry. It's not high end.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
I'm putting it in perspective.
Okay.
One is up here, right?
Yes.
And one's down here, right?
You can
From
say-
a perspective standpoint.
Sure.
Wealthy guy, working Joe, right?
Sure.
We're gonna need to give the jury a break. We'll take 10 minutes. Hey, check in at home, tell them you're gonna be a little late tonight. Either side need it.
Yeah, sure, just a request.
Question?
Yeah, sure, Honor, just to gauge how late Your Honor plans to go. If I am gonna be doing my cross it is gonna be several hours. It would be long, so I do think that this witness would have to come back, but I have a lot of setup to do with respect to the electronics and demonstratives. I don't know if the court's plan is to have Mr. Zengane finish today and then break.
Kind of thinking, well, we're gonna at least finish Mr. Sanganet's cross before we break. So we'll see where we are then.
I don't have much.
All right, give me 10 minutes.
Sounds correct.